well. So it's been unfortunate, though. I don't think we've seen the best of Toman here at this point. He's really kind of struggled at this point. But as you can see from the graphics in front of you, folks, Monza is our next track. And let's talk about the Temple of Speed, Lewis, because the Tifosi love it, as do we.
Yeah, the Autodromo Internazionale di Monza. When it comes to age of circuit, of course, we list the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps as being 100 years old. Well, guess what else is 100 years old? Yeah, Monza is as well. It is an old circuit. It's a classic circuit. It's one that's been known for being on the Formula One World Championship since basically it started in the 1950s. We do have the result, by the way, confirmed. That's why they're all driving around Monza now. So in a few moments' time, we'll be able to take a look at the updated championship standings. Of course, Dane Warren had worked his way up a little bit further. This is practice, and that might have been Kevin Siggy. Exit stage right there. You can see all of the drivers at the bottom of your screen and how they're feeling. This is the championship standing now. So Dane Warren and Yuri Toman switching a little bit on those points. So Yuri Toman now with 30. Dane Warren down to 25, but still at the front, the top three, there's nothing between them.
Not at all. Josh Rogers, as we said, 65 points. He remains there up at the top. Could yet get himself into finalist mode in the next race at Monza, should he pull together a decent result. And the points threshold is certainly going to favour him at this point. A P3 should be enough to get him over the line. 81 points that would give him at the end, should he achieve at least that. Yeah. Of course, he would probably prefer to take the victory just to carry on in a good vein of form, but also P2 20. As long as he gets a top 3 finish, he's in good shape.
I will say one thing on those championship standings. Yuri Kasdorp, just a single point. Yeah. I feel bad for Yuri because coming into yesterday, honestly, of all of the drivers, Yuri Kasdorp, I would argue, was actually one of the ones that impressed me the most in the sense of where he was in the spring season, where he was before, and where he is now. It was such an incredible push forward, and it showed that he was really figuring this out. Unfortunately, he's just not had quite the right day. Which, when it comes to the team's championship tomorrow, which when we're talking $400,000 for this, that's $600,000 for the team's championship, which begins tomorrow, runs Saturday and Sunday. We'll find out who's the best team on Rennsport here in ESL R1, sponsored by Aramco. That's a big hit of confidence.
That is indeed, and certainly 400 grand would go a long way to certainly many of these drivers, and naturally now as we see them make their way around the circuit of Monza, of course there you can see the Porsche Commanders coming through. You can see a very comfortable looking Kevin Ellis Jr. on the top right as well.
Did you see Kevin Siggy there? In practice, shaking his head, hand over his face, wiping the sweat from his brow. He is not looking comfortable right now. And I said this, I literally talked to you about this morning, is that Kevin Siggy is an amazing driver. He's changed his mentality since he's come into to here in Riyadh in Gamers8. But I was fearful that when he gets inside his own head, Kevin Siggy's his own worst enemy, and I think we're seeing a little bit of that now. You can see the pressure on his shoulders.
You can see it weighing down on him. I think if you just look at the facial expressions, he's so transfixed on what's in front of him here. And, this is, some drivers relish, the pressure cooker scenario. And Kevin and Siggy, who off the back of 2 stellar race wins and showing really what he is capable of, in behind the wheel of a sim rig, we're starting to see all that hard work being undone here at this point, which is a real shame. And if you look at his potential, of course, his best result so far being a P5 at the Nürburgring, should I say P6 at the Nürburgring, he qualified P5 at the Nürburgring, but nevertheless, he should get more. But nevertheless, he has got a teammate in Jeffrey Rietveld, who is also chasing the big results. He could also put himself in a great position for finalist mode as well, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly. He actually needs to win this race. He needs 20. He needs all 25 of those points. He's currently on 58. If he finishes in second, he'll only have 78 points. That's too shy of finalist mode. So he does need to take victory in this race. What we could see, though, is if he finishes in first place, takes victory, and Joshua Rogers joins him on the podium in either second or third, we will have 2 drivers in finalist mode heading into the 5th race. Now, let's just say this about their strength and their power in this competition thus far. That is the fastest that you can get into finalist mode. The fastest you can do so is after 4 races with the point structure that we have. The fact that we might have 2 drivers in finalist mode, these 2 are the drivers to beat.
Yeah, and these 2 have been undoubtedly the fastest as well. Rietveld, who was showing really, really good numbers in the practice sessions we had even prior to the start of the event. He has carried that form through yet again. And if we have a look at his last 3 outings, second in our opening race here as we made our way through the final, and of course qualifying second as well. Fourth then following that at the Nürburgring, but then winning after starting pole. He's got a great record in closing out results where he qualifies. A great qualifying performance could yet give Rietveld a great chance at being placed into finals mode. We'll have to wait and see whether he can achieve that. But also, a man who can make it 2 drivers into finals mode, that of course being Joshua Rogers, has a great opportunity to certainly grant that approval to himself as well. Porsche Coanda will be cheering him on, no doubt. So, where do you reckon it'll go, Lewis?
I can see. So I think what I know about the BMW is I'm not sure it's the strongest car around here. That's my fear. I'm sure they've got good speed. I'm sure he might be able to finish on the podium. I don't think Jeffrey Rietveld is going to be the driver to win this race. I think Joshua Rogers is going to win this race, which is concerning to everyone because what track are we racing directly after this? Well,
we're actually going to Monza again.
Yeah. So if the Porsche is strong around here and Joshua Rogers enters finalist mode now with a victory, that is a very big concern for the rest of the field. It could be done after just 5 races.
And if he does it here, if he gets pole here at Monza as well, talking mind games, that is certainly where you want to be as well. But we're away in qualifying now, Lewis. Take us away.
Yeah, Jeffrey Rietveld will be the first driver to start his qualifying lap of the Autodromo Internazionale di Monza on this enormous start-finish straight, the longest run down towards turn 1 that we have here in Rennsport, into the Rettifidio, where you've got to absolutely hammer the curbs, up and over 1, up and over 2, as they exit the corner, gets a nice drive off of it, and in that first sector, what we're aiming for is a 34.76. If we're somewhere in the 34.7s, this is a solid lap time from Jeffrey Rietveld. We head round Curva Grande where the first sector split ends up towards the Rogier. Let's see what it's going to be.
Yeah, looking for around a 34.7, ideally 34.8 just outside the window, about a 10th and a half off where he needs to be. Of course, Sector 2 could yet deliver something a little better, though he has to try and execute through the first and second Lesmo. You want to try and keep it pinned down the inside, feathering that throttle here at Monza as well. This circuit that opened up back in 1922 still holds all of its historical attributes that we have seen over the years as well. Rietveld now powering down the Seraglio straight, needs a great run down towards Ascari, and very soon as he makes his way towards the Sector 2 line, he's going to need something major.
Yeah, 35.5, but I don't think he's going to get it. That's what he's aiming for in that second sector. He had a shake of the head on the exit of the second Lesmo. It is a 35.5. No need to shake the head. He went out a little bit too wide going through the second Lesmo. Up and over that final curb at Ascari. It is looking like a decent lap, George. That's the thing, is I'm not sure it's going to be good enough to hold pole position, though.
No, we'll have to find out. Of course, you'll need to make it around Curva Alboreto in order to register that said lap time. Sector 3 is going to need to be clinical, as now the Dutchman makes his way through now, keeps it tied up, heading through the formerly known as Parabolica, now known as the Curva Alboreto, as they make their way down now out of that section now, heading through turn 11. What's it going to be for Jeffrey Rietveld as he makes his way towards the line? Is it enough to certainly place himself where he would need to be? No. 35.7, again losing a 10th.
Yeah, no, that 46.1 is not enough. We were aiming for a 46.0 in that sector, in that lap realistically, so I don't think that's going to be enough. Lap time coming in here from Marcel Chinchik. This is a driver that loves this circuit. He's gone really well here. This is where he won, of course, the ESL R1 Spring Major back in Munich. He took victory at this circuit, the final race of 8 on that Sunday. Marcel Chinchik will come up towards the line. The first and second sector are tracking really well. It could be a 0.0 from him. It is a 0.0 from him, a 0.47 rather. And so Marcel Chinchik moves himself up into pole position.
Last time he qualified in the top 3 was at the Nürburgring, of course, earlier on tonight. Josh Rogers has set a 34.7. That's where he needs to be in the first sector. The second sector a 35.5 as well. He is trying to tie himself up, of course, with Marcel Chinchik. Can he go one better and take that pole position and make him one step closer to finals mode now as he makes his way through towards the start-finish line? What's it going to be in Sector 3 at 35.779? Loses ideally a 10th of where he needs to be, but third fastest.
Interesting. So Joshua Rogers behind Jeffrey Rietveld, third of the 3 that have set lap times thus far. Maximilian Benneker will be the next one to come through, who had big disappointment after a poor start at the previous round at the Hockenheimring. He was the second driver in the point standings going into that round. He now drops down to third. He cannot get into finalist mode in this race, but he can at least get close. Benneker will cross the line and will move his way up to, well, stays in 4th position, so slightly slower than Rogers by about about a tenth of a second. Disappointment for him.
Yeah, from Benneker to now Baldwin, 34.9. And losing out 2/10 in the first sector, not ideal at all. 37.6, that's another tenth of a second out of where he needs to be. In fact, a little bit more, 2 seconds out from where he needs to be. 35 would have been ideal, 37 is not. Sector 3 looks like it's just going to be a case of crossing the line. You can just see there, a weary-looking James Baldwin in the bottom left does not look pleased. 1 iota and a 48.316 places him 5th fastest and 2.2 off the pace.
Yeah, I know the Mercs have been struggling a little bit thus far this weekend, but the build-up to the weekend rather. But I wasn't expecting that from Baldwin. He is having some proper problems in that car. Speaking of slowdowns in the second sector, Tommy Usgaard's the next one to have done so. 37.7 for him. Again, that is 2 seconds off. His battle now is to whether he can get ahead of James Baldwin or not. He is definitely not challenging the top 4. So Usgaard will come through the final corner up towards the line, and he will put himself behind James Baldwin. So big drama for 2 of our big names in that middle sector.
Yeah, the tension's starting to come in now here at the midway point of qualifying. Kevin Ellis Jr., who has also had his struggles here as well. 34.7 in the first sector looks reasonable. 35, losing just 2/10, I think, in that middle sector. I think that's where he would rather be. But a big sector 3 is what's required for the Audi R8 LMS as he now heads up towards the line. What's it going to be for Kevin Ellis Jr.? 35.8 grants him at 146 and places him 5th fastest. But Yuri Toman, he's up next for R8G.
Yeah, we'll see what Toman can do. Obviously, Marcel Cinchik is the driver that's presently on that pole position. Yuri Toman losing out, what, 3 seconds is that? That is the biggest slowdown that we've seen in the second sector. My goodness. The Czech driver will come through and will be the 3rd driver to get a slowdown in that middle sector. He will almost certainly be behind James Baldwin and Tommy Usgaard unless he goes about a second faster than literally is possible in that final sector. So it's only going to be 8th for him.
Yeah, a struggle. Certainly the Ascari chicane can be punishing. Of course, that is where around the Sector 2 line comes to an end. Jakob Brzezinski comes up next as well, coming through Kerber Alboreto for the pole. 34.8 in the first sector, around a 10th down on where he would want to be. The middle sector again not delivering either, around 2/10, nearly 3/10 off where he would prefer. Sector 3 time that'll need to be a very, very crafty one. 6th fastest is where he goes. 4/10 off the pace sent by Marcel Cinchik. It's looking good for the Hungarian.
Yeah, certainly so. He's in that top spot at the moment. He's 600ths faster than Jeffrey Rietveld. Yuri Kasdorp will be the next one to come through. First sector was actually quite decent from him with a 34.7, just in the higher end of that though. And his second sector about a 10th off. So realistically speaking, he could be putting himself ahead of his Mouse teammate Maximilian Benneker. He's navigated the Ascari chicane, which is where they might well lose the most amount of time. It could well be 5th position. That's exactly where he goes. Just about half a tenth behind his teammate. Just 2 more left to go. Dane Warren and Kevin Siggy.
Dane Warren looking sharp in the first sector. 35.8 though in the middle sector is not ideal. That's 3/10 off where he would want to be as well. And you'll need something serious in sector 3 to pull back that deficit. And this would, should he carry it through, it would put him around where Jakob Brzezinski is currently in 7th place. Would need a huge sector 3 though to pull that off. He might yet drop below that of Brzezinski and down into 8th place as he crosses the line. 151.547. In fact, does.
Yeah, I thought I heard him shifting gears on the back stretch.
Yeah,
that's
slowing
very
down.
odd.
Yeah, absolutely right. Kevin Siggy up next though.
Yeah, certainly so. So into the final corner he will go. First sector is a little slow. Second sector is a little slow as well, but nothing too major. Could well be ahead of Kevin Ellis Jr. That will slop into that gap between Kasdorp and Ellis Jr., but he goes up just ahead of Kasdorp. Obviously only a 100th of a second slower than Maximilian Benneker, but nearly around his teammate. Slightly better from Kevin Siggy, but not what he would have wanted. We know the BMW is a little slow around here, but still Rietveld has done an amazing job to get onto the front row. Marcel Cinchik alongside, Joshua Rogers in there as well. We're in for a barnstorm of a fight, and that run down towards the first corner.
Yeah, the top 2 within the same 10th of a second, and it's all down to this man, Marcel Cinchik, back in the form once again, Lewis. He has a great chance here to deliver once again.
Certainly so. Well, you can see Marcel Cinchik there. Let's take a look at the starting grid for race number 4 here on Friday. At the back of the field, it's Dane Warren with a strong slowdown in the final sector. There are 1 minute 51.5, not good enough for him. But then there's a string of slowdowns as well. Yuri Toman in 11th, Tommy Usgaard in 10th, and James Baldwin in 9th. Then we get to the real times. Jakob Brzezinski at the back of those in 8th position with Kevin Ellis Jr. in 7th, just a few thousandths of a second behind Yuri Kasdorp Kasdorp. Then we get Kevin Siggy, Maximilian Benneker and Joshua Rogers, the points leader on the day, just behind the driver that's second in the points, finds himself second in this qualifying session. But of course, it's the driver that loves this circuit, taking the ALJ fastest qualifying lap. It's of course Marcel Chinchik, another 0.0. He's so good at that around this circuit. He's done that so many times and he puts himself into an incredible position once again. Could this be the time that he starts to turn around his form here?
Yeah, this is form that we're very unlike seeing from Chinchik. Obviously 7th in the first race when we went to Spa, but would take a podium, 3rd place after qualifying 3rd as well for the next one at the Nürburgring. But off pole, you'll have a great chance to bring it home once again. And naturally, as you can see from the graphic, he's on top still.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, amazing stuff. So, an ALJ fastest qualifying lap. This time it was by Marcel Chinchik, adding his name to the list. But again, at a circuit that he loves so much. He is the man to beat around Monza. I said it before when we came into this. I was like, if somehow Marcel Chinchik could get himself into position to get into finalist mode going into that second race at Monza, obviously the next race, he's not able to do so. But I said if he was able to do so, I think he was going to win the event there and then because he's so good around Monza. But of course, we can't forget about the job that Erhan Yovsky did on that day. So, you know, fair enough on that one. Joshua Rogers from 3rd position, though. Again, if he finishes in that spot, he will still enter finalist mode. Jeffrey Rietveld needs to go one better. He needs to make his way past and take victory over Marcel Chinchik and Joshua Rogers here.
Yeah, it's vital for Rietveld. He needs to win in order to get himself into finalist mode after this race has concluded. But I'm sure there is going to be one Joshua Rogers who's going to stop that from happening. But why don't we take a look at the standings, Lewis McGlade?
Why not? Of course, top of those standings will be Joshua Rogers, 65 points. He can enter finalist mode in this race if he finishes in 3rd or better. 16 points for 3rd, 20 for 2nd, and 25 for 1st. What that means is Jeffrey Rietveld to pass 80 points and enter finalist mode. He needs a victory. He needs 25 points. If he finishes 2nd, he gets 20. He will only have 78 points. That is not good enough. Maximilian Benneker and all those drivers behind cannot enter finalist mode in this race, but they can get closer. Benneker needs to bounce back after a poor run at the Hockenheim. He's on 47 points before we get to Yuri Toman, Dane Warren, and our pole sitter, Marcel Chinchik, just in 6th. Then we get the rest of the contingent who aren't having the particularly great day that we were expecting from some of them.
No, Maximilian Benneker, if he will take victory, it will grant him to 72 points at the start of the race. But Lewis, it's all on you, my friend.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Certainly so. That long run down towards that first corner, down towards the Rettifilio here at the Autodromo Internazionale di Monza. Could we be seeing one driver entering finalist mode? Could we be seeing 2? That's the big question. It's between Joshua Rogers and Jeffrey Rietveld, but Marcel Chinchik's ahead of those. The lights go out and we go racing here at Monza and we head down towards that first corner. A good start from Kevin Siggy. I saw there from the Team Redline driver. It's not a particularly good one from the Porsche Commander driver, but he's coming back in that second phase of the race start, coming down towards the Rettifilio. Great stuff there from Marcel Chinchik, but Jeffrey Rietveld sending one in. Here comes Joshua Rogers around the outside. He's trying to get himself past the driver that's 2nd in the standings, unable to do so right now.
No, he could not find his way through, but credit to certainly the car belonging to Team Redline, now looking to make a harsh charge. Heading up through the order, Jeffrey Rietveld solidifying his placement in 2nd place with Rogers in behind with Benneker as well, looking to try and charge. He's bringing Kevin Siggy along for the ride as well as they come through the Rogier. Benneker going defensive as now they look to go side by side, rubbing his racing through the Rogier chicane. A stellar move. He committed Kevin Siggy as they come through Lesmo 1.
That's fantastic stuff from Siggy. He's not done yet though. Benneker's trying to hang it around the outside through Lesmo 1 up towards Lesmo 2 as well. The pair remain side by side. It's Siggy on the inside. We ride on board with Joshua Rogers, and I think behind, I'm not sure which way round they're switching, but Maximilian Benneker and Kevin Siggy remain side by side. We're on board with Joshua Rogers, who sat behind Jeffrey Rietveld, but the action's behind.
It certainly is. We need to try and plug into this now because Benneker and Yuri Kasdorp is now making his way through. He now looks to charge this time on Kevin Siggy, heading through the Ascari chicane. They run wheel to wheel on the way through towards this very, very fast-paced action. No, Kasdorp's gone. Kasdorp has gone. It is Yuri Kasdorp effectively out of the equation here at this point, but they're all coming together down the straight.
They're 3 wide though. Look at all of this in the middle. You've got Brzezinski in the middle of all of this. That was crazy stuff through Ascari, and they remain in crazy town. You've got Kevin Siggy on the inside. You've got Yuri Toman a part of the mix as well. We head our way through looking for backwards from Kevin Ellis Jr. and you can see, once again it's 3-1. Kevin Ellis Jr. comes into the pit lane. I think it must have been a jump start. This battle's going to continue and continue and continue. They're not getting single file because James Baldwin is battling with his fellow Mercedes in Jakub Brzezinski.
Yeah, the two Mercs together, but also drawing together as well. Yuri Toman and that of Kevin Siggy, who takes the outside line in towards the first chicane of the Retifilia. We got 3 wide as well, heading through turn 1. A Porsche Commander getting squeezed out momentarily as well, but the two Mercs still remain the same. The Curva Grande up next. Will it be this time a potential move this time for Kevin Siggy to prevent the move here this time from Yuri Toman, who heads down the inside now, leaning now towards the Rogers chicane. Toman with a nose in front as they stretch towards this next S section.
This is absolutely fantastic. Once again, Siggy to the inside of Toman, up towards the Rogier, up and onto the curbs, and here comes James Baldwin. Oh, it's not quite close enough, but he is going to be able to clear potentially Kevin Siggy into the slipstream slightly on this short run down towards the first Lesmo. This is a fantastic battle. It's not for anyone entering finalist mode, but there are points for these positions. Again, a tight little fight there between Brzezinski and Warren behind all of this as they head through Lesmo 2. This is fantastic stuff, George.
It's an incredible battle. It's an iconic duel between some of the best drivers you'll see in ESL R1. Jakub Brzezinski, who's bringing himself into the fight now at the expense of Kevin Siggy as well as Kevin Ellis Jr. That's the confirmation of the drive-through penalty as well for the Apex Racing driver. We saw him dip in earlier on during the course of this race, but they come through Ascari now. It's still Toman who leads the train. This fight is brewing heavily.
I mean, again, it's brilliant stuff. It's not conducive to good point scoring, but it is entertaining nonetheless. James Baldwin finds himself in 6th position after that slowdown in qualifying. He could well make his way past Yuri Toman, maybe not down here into the Curva Alboreto. I'll follow you. It's parabolic. I just can't do it. But Toman, I think, will be a sitting duck by the time they get down the end of the start-finish straight and into the Retifilio. So we'll have to wait and see if the R8G driver is going to be able to hang on to 5th position. It could be I mean, the thing is that they're not going to score any more points. Look at the gap ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're running wheel to wheel again. James Baldwin this time still fighting, trying to gain on Yuri Toman. Gets the move done before the corner. Careful, calculated, a precise move. A real move that we would have expected nonetheless, certainly heading through the first sector as we now take a look at them coming out of the Retifilia chicane. Is Baldwin on top?
Yeah, certainly so. Yeah, Marcel Chinchik, though, leads by 0.2 of a second. Joshua Rogers about a second now behind that. So my talk of the Porsche has actually been quite good. It seems like it's complete rubbish, to be perfectly honest. Maximilian Benneker about a second behind that. There is Jeffrey Rietveld, second in the race. We've said that is not good enough. Joshua Rogers at the moment is good enough to enter finalist mode. Jeffrey Rietveld is not. He must win this race. If he doesn't, then, well, Rogers could be wrapping it all up all by himself in the 5th race if he can piece things together. But we're still very early doors in this race, and we know Rietveld and that BMW might well burn through its tyres.
Yeah, absolutely, but Rietveld is still very up close and personal, 4/10 away from the back of Chinchik's car as they now peel through the Ascari chicane yet again. Joshua Rogers around 8/10 away as we now cut and have a look at a replay. This was the Kasdorp incident heading through Ascari. We saw them rub together, of course, but it would be a combination of the red line BMW, and that sent Kasdorp into that segment as well. It's been a rough day for him, a shake of the head. He is not happy, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that one. I mean, Kasdorp sent he's trying to get past and trying to get through, going through there. Maybe you could say he squeezed Siggy onto the curb. Maybe you could say Siggy, I mean, what are you doing trying to remain alongside going through there? But it is racing at the end of the day, so it's tough stuff between the pair of them. But I can see that one definitely being adjudicated by race control and potentially not in favour of the Team Red Line driver. This one, though, Team Red Line, speaking of which, I think I just saw him lift.
Yes, I did too. That is patience being shown there by Jeffrey Rietveld, and I get the feeling he knows what he needs to do. He knows what's at stake. He knows he needs a race win, but I think he's saving it for later.
Yeah, he's playing himself quite calm at the moment. And I don't blame him. Right now, he's got a 7/10 gap back to Joshua Rogers. If he tries to go for anything on Marcel Chinchik and it doesn't work, and it's a half-hearted move, well, Joshua Rogers could take the race victory, and then Jeffrey Rietveld's miles behind. He's got to play his cards well. This is a driver who may not be so patient. Sat behind Jakub Brzezinski, it's Kevin Siggy. These two have raced each other an awful lot, particularly on R-Factor 2.
Yep, they certainly have done, and Siggy will look to try and loft himself higher because he needs to get more points under his belt in order to bring himself even into the equation for finalist mode, because, of course, he's only nailed a P9 line, 6th twice as well at both Nürburgring and Hockenheim. And if he stays like this right now, obviously that'll be another P8, or certainly a P8 this time around to add to the locker. Certainly not where he needs to be, as now we right on board with Jakob Brzezinski, who has Siggy bearing down on him, down towards the Serigilio straight. They have, of course, got the next S section of Ascari, and he's hot on the heels there of the Williams Mercedes, not making a move, but they will rub together through Ascari.
I mean, I'll say Kevin Siggy's learning, because honestly, the Kevin Siggy Ioda race would have absolutely sent that straight down the inside of Jakob Brzezinski. He's been slightly more patient in this race. He understands that wouldn't have been the best move, so Kevin Siggy remains in 8th position. This one, though, might well be on. Is he going to bump draft the rear end of Jakob Brzezinski? Not quite. It was a little bit of getting up to the rear end and then lifting out of it, because I think he wants to make a move either down into the Rettifilio or not make a move at all, because he can see that there's only 8/10 between Brzezinski and Toman, and there could well be 5th place on the cards for this group when they get down to the final moments of this race. We're not quite halfway yet. You can see a look in the distance. Jeffrey Rietveld having a little look down the inside of Marcel Cinci, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, I think he's trying to keep as well at the same time. He obviously, while he's pressing here, Kevin Siggy, Toman is obviously a driver that he might want to try and marshal off. Rietveld, though, if you look at it, right at the very top end, within 3/10, 2.5 now as they head out of Curva Grande. They have, of course, got the Rogier chicane coming up next, which will lead towards the middle sector, into middle sector proper at the Lesmo 1 and 2. Very aggressive over the curbs there from Jeffrey Rietveld, a man who's certainly coming into his own at this portion of ESL R1. As we said before, struggled in the spring series, but here now and ready to fight, as we now see many of the cars now once again come together. Brzezinski once again on our screen being chased down by Dane Warren, has got Siggy right ahead of him here as well as they head through Lesmo 2.
Yeah, again, let's see if there's going to be any switches in this group. It's calmed down an awful lot from that early phase of the race where they were going 2 and 3 wide at various points. They've started to settle themselves in, but I know that this will start to heat up as the race goes on, as we head into those final moments. Brzezinski then 8th place, Kevin Siggy 7th, then Toman ahead of that, and Baldwin all a part of this train that sees it back down towards Warren Østgaard as well. Unfortunately for Kastorp, Ellis Jr. obviously into the pit lane early doors because a jump start. That's a big shame for the Apex Racing Team driver, but Kastorp might well be able to stick an extra point onto his resume from this Friday. But again, what's 1 point between mates?
Well, absolutely, especially in this field where it's so closely bunched together. Marcel Cinci, who we currently see on screen, leading the way. In behind him, Jeffrey Rietveld, looking to put himself in finalist mode. Another driver who's just having a careful, concise drive is Joshua Rogers. He knows he's going into finalist mode as well. Should he stay like this? And Rietveld now once again getting closer. He's certainly going to search here on Cinci, but not quite yet. He's going to wait behind. The patience is showing. He's waiting patiently for that final lap, I think, here, Lewis. I think he just wants to save the tyres, save the tyre wear. Obviously, it's imperative around Monza.
My only concern is this might be, so I've said before about the tyre wear, which can be a bit of a problem on board with the BMWs. There is one other thing that they're not particularly great at, and that's straight line speed. I wonder if that might be playing a bit of a factor to it. I want to lean, I'm going to hopefully lean on the fact that I think it's more just the fact that he's lifting out of it slightly and not trying to fight yet. He's going to wait for his right time. You're absolutely right in Joshua Rogers, though. He's got nothing to gain, really, from fighting this lot, because he knows I'm in position right now. If I try and go for something and then I spin around and, hey, maybe Jeffrey Rietveld goes for the race victory and then he's the one in finalist mode and I'm not, maybe it's too late.
Why squander it at this point? Exactly. Obviously, there's James Baldwin. Yuri Toman now hot on his tail. The Audi now coming down the Serralio straights, and the Czechia drivers, you can just see, just looking left on his screen. Obviously just paying attention to what's going on. Breaks out of the dirty air as well as he makes his way down towards Ascari. Rubs over the left curb, now the right. Again, you can just see them taking it oh so aggressively as you can in these GT3 cars. As now we see once again Kevin Siggy on the charge as well. Looking up, that of course being Jeffrey Rietveld, who's trying to fight for the lead. That's what we're currently seeing on screen here. Rogers in behind them as well in 3rd place. Cinci now heading through Curva Alvaretto. Now is this where Rietveld might think about making a move? Will he do it a lap earlier or will he do it on the final lap?
Yeah, always I've said in these scenarios, I don't want to leave it to the final lap. I want to at least give myself some room to go for it. He's closing in once again, so it'll be well under 1/10 of a second by the time they get onto the brakes. Let's see, here we go. It is a look, and it is a commitment as well. Jeffrey Rietveld is going to send it down the inside of Marcel Cinci, so he is going for the race lead. It could be finalist mode for the Dutchman, who the Hungarian ahead of him says, absolutely not. You know what circuit you're at, and you know who I am. I'm the champion. My name's Marcel Cinci. You think you're going to pass me around here? You'll have to try better than that, sir.
Yeah, but he's coming back at the Curva Grande as well, and there's no more straights after this one until the Seraglio one indeed, and Jeffrey Rietveld going for glory, going for the finalist mode as well. Chinchik might not be able to defend this one. They rub together, heading out of the Rogier, but Chinchik again, brilliant display from the R8G, and Rogers might decide to make Rietveld's job a harder one, because of course if he gets through, that means Rietveld does not qualify for definite, and it certainly would still ensure Rogers' rise through to finalist mode.
So maybe Rogers does actually want to get past Rietveld. If he gets ahead of Rietveld, then suddenly Rietveld is not in position at all, even remotely to get into finalist mode, and then it would just be Joshua Rogers. Let's see what he does coming up towards Ascari. The defensive line's being taken from Rietveld. He knows he can hang on from Rogers. Rogers surely not going to go to it in Ascari. He does back out of it. He couldn't have risked it that much. I've got to say, defensive driver, we were saying about Jeffrey Rietveld in the previous race being absolutely incredible. Marcel Chinchik's here thus far has been pretty stellar as well. Let's see how he hangs on in the final moments. We're heading on to the penultimate lap of the race. There is not long left to go here around Monza.
And this will effectively give Joshua Rogers essentially a free shot at the whole championship victory as well, because obviously he'll be the only one in finalist mode. Therefore, one race win away, and here at Monza to lay claim to the championship here at Gamers8. This could be massive here in the context of this entire series, as now they make their way down through towards turns 1 and 2. Down they go, Lewis. Take it away.
Yeah, let's see if there is going to be a move. So Rogers is in position right now. He is comfortable enough. He, like you say, he doesn't have to risk it, but he wants to be the only driver in finalist mode. You are absolutely right on that one. Penultimate lap, and still Marcel Chinchik is able to hang on. They're comfortably ahead of Maximilian Benneker at the moment. 1.1 seconds behind, so he's going to join into this fight unless they fight so unbelievably hard. Benneker has seen this. He's been close, and he's not been able to get involved in the championship. Rietveld is, though. Rogers is, though. Marcel Chinchik is trying to hang on just for some extra glory on this Friday.
Yeah, coming down towards Lesmo 1 now. Chinchik still leads. Rietveld now within 3/10 as they peel through now towards Lesmo 2 after this one. Just getting so dangerously close there to the gravel trap. And look at Benneker also trying to bring himself back in. Nearly just over a second away as they now make their way down the Seraglio straight yet again. Chinchik still leads. 0.4 of a second now, Rietveld, as we now look back and see Rogers look to try and clamber closer. Ascari comes up after this one, and Rogers, who currently sees top, again a look down the inside of Rietveld, just making him think a little bit.
He's just getting in his head, I mean, to be fair, Rieveld's been racing for over 10 years. You're not going to get in his head, but then Rogers has been racing long enough as well. These two are putting on quite the show, and it's all behind Marcel Chinchik. There is Joshua Rogers in the top right of your screen. You can see the spider cam looking over his shoulder, looking over exactly what he's feeling. You can see into his face, see into his eyes. There's so much pressure on his shoulders, but still, he knows he doesn't want two drivers in finalist mode. Maybe he does have to make his way past.
Well, I think he might do. He might think about it this time as well. The penultimate lap about to be put to bed. The final lap now about to take us to the end of the race here at Monza. But we'll soon go racing here again one final time, I'm sure, as now we see them once again come together. Joshua Rogers trying to make that zealous overtake that could seal Rietveld's fate as they come through turns 1 and turns 2. Brilliant hit for Joshua Rogers, but it's not over yet, Lewis McGlade.
He has to be so careful not to get a penalty. He did squeeze a little bit on the exit there. Now race control might take looks at various things like that, so he must not get a penalty in this scenario, because then it could be over. But it is over realistically for Jeffrey Rietveld, who's now trying to come back into second position. He can't take the race victory that he requires because Joshua Rogers has taken over second. Onto the brakes they go and into the Rogier, and Marcel Chinchik started to check out.
He certainly has. It looked like Rietveld was going to get close heading through the Curva Grande, through the latter stages as well, but heading through the Rogier, Rogers hanging on to his P2 advantage. Chinchik, though, starting to check out. 6/10 clear now of Rogers, who is trying to clamber. Nonetheless, he doesn't need to win. He is already in the position where he needs to be in order to open up finalist mode now. Rietveld is going to need a little more. Remember, needing a victory to even think about laying claim to being part of that, alongside that of Josh Rogers. Having another look down the inside of the Ascari. No fruitful overtake can be made. Rogers just far too experienced.
No, we're going to have a chat about that little move going on the exit of the Rettifilio after this race, because there's going to be some stuff to be discussed. A lot from race control to deal with as well, and it's a big one as well, because it would decide whether Joshua Rogers enters finalist mode or not. Let's see what happens at the moment. We'll have to call it as is, because he's in second. Jeffrey Rietveld has a look down the inside. There is no move for him coming into Curva Alboreto, and so Joshua Rogers is going to be able to hang on to second position. But ahead of all of that, it's the master of Monza. It's Marcel Chinchik who will come across the line to take victory at the circuit he loves so much. R8G on top. Joshua Rogers heading into finalist mode at the moment in second, and Jeffrey Rietveld denied at the last. He'll finish in third, and that will not be good enough, George.
No, not at all for Jeffrey Rietveld, but Joshua Rogers getting himself through, as far as we can see, into finalist mode. And naturally, though, Marcel Chinchik will be the man delighted. A race win here at Monza, a key race win as well.
Yeah, now potentially for Joshua Rogers, it could be one step closer to that trophy there. We'll have to wait and see what race control think for Marcel Chinchik, who's hoisted a trophy before on the ESL R1 stage, takes a victory. That one will be sweet, 25 points to his name. He's starting to move himself back into it. Thumbs up. You know he's so calm, isn't he? Almost no sweat on his brow.
Cool as a cucumber. Marcel Chinchik always with a smile on his face, and another smile for a photo as well after laying claim to another win that he is so used to as well. But Lewis, he did it calmly, he did it concisely, was not phased one bit.
No, not at all. So does that mean they should probably join phase? But no, it's fine. He's pretty comfortable in R8G. Like you say, it was a brilliant drive, but it's a classic one from Marcel around here. I think it's his third victory around Monza when it comes to LAN. He's so good around this circuit. Joshua Rogers, question marks for him. Takes out his little in-ears as well. They just help block out a lot of the noise in the arena of other drivers, other noises as well. It's been tricky for some of these drivers to keep focused on days like this. Saw even a little bit of that getting into the eyes of Joshua Rogers. It's baffling how they can keep focused under this pressure.
Yeah, it's a very fish out of water scenario. Here is, though, the replay. This is Yuri Kazdorp's moment where he went off, of course, colliding with Kevin Siggy, heading through Ascari. They came out, though, of course, turns 9 and 10, but he didn't venture turn 10 out of the corner fully, and Yuri Kazdorp then hitting the barrier. The stewards will take a look at it, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say that one probably is more on with Siggy, but either way, here comes Rogers.
We're joined on the main stage by Mr. Rogers himself. But you know what? We're in this weird state of limbo because I have to say, an incredible overtake to claim second place. But you know, we don't know what the outcome of it's going to be. So from your perspective, you know, going into that, obviously you know that you had to make that overtake because if you didn't, then Jeff would have gone into finalist mode as well. So, penny for your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that coming into that race, I needed P3. Jeffrey needed to win. And he was always in the draft of Marcel the entire time. So whatever I could do to either extend that gap between him and the car in front or try and get in front, it wasn't necessarily going to change the outcome, but it would obviously have a big impact on that. I wasn't necessarily trying to go for P2, but yeah, in the end we got there. We're in finalist mode now, but the hard part starts now, obviously converting and winning. Obviously next we go to Monza, which notoriously is probably the hardest track to win and the least important from a qualifying perspective. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it and I'm having fun, and the fact that we've come this far already has far exceeded my expectations, so I'm happy.
سألنا المتسابقة معنا جاش على أدائه الأسطوري اللي جالس يلعب فيه، وفعلا جالس يتسابق في مستواه ثابت دائم، يحقق معنا في المراكز الثانية. لكن في هذا السباق تحديدا صارت بعض المخالفات ولا ندري ايش تأثيرها عليه، فنبغى نسأله هل فعلا راح تأثر عليك أو من حتى برضو من وجهة نظرك كيف راح تكون. فذكر المتسابق قال أنها هي ممكن أن تأثر، هو ما كان يحتاج أصلا أن يكون المركز الثاني، كل اللي يحتاجه أنه يكون المركز الثالث عشان يقدر يكون في الفاينالست مود، عشان يقدر يلعب في النهائيات، وإذا حقق النصر راح يفوز في البطولة. فكان يحتاج بس المركز الثالثة الأولى، لعله تهور يمكن شوي في السباق، لكن مع ذلك يقول إنه حاول إنه يصنع المسافات بين المراكز الثانية الأولى على أساس إنه يقدر يتفوق عليهم. والسباق الجاي اللي راح يكون في مونزا راح نعرف تفاصيل أكثر، لأنه بيكون برضو سباق جدا صعب.
Well, you've already mentioned it. We're going back to Monza. So let's just think about that. Let's just think about the next race at hand. What's kind of going through your mind? What kind of kinks are you trying to kind of iron out going into that? Maybe a couple of mistakes that you made in that race just then, you know, kind of fill us in.
Yeah, you know, obviously improving qualifying will still help, right? Being on that kind of front row, or at least for me being in the top three there, I noticed Max and I think it was Kevin battled behind me, and that ultimately opened that gap. So being part of that front pack when it does eventually break away is going to be important. Being off the front can sometimes mean that you're in that lucky situation where you're the only one, like what happened with Marcel in Munich. So yeah, I don't know. I'll just go out there, try and do my best, and we'll see what happens.
فعلا نبغى نعرف ايش يقدر يسوي المتسابق معنا جوش في السباق الجاي اللي راح يكون في مضمار مونزا. فذكر المتسابق قال ان كل اللي يحتاجه من جد هو برضو في الثلاث مراكز الاولى، لكن يعتمد اذا فعلا نقص في الترتيب بحكم ممكن يطلع فيها المخالفات، فيحتاج بشكل او باخر انه يكون في ثلاث مراكز الاولى. وفي نفس الوقت ان في متسابقين ثانيين زي ماكس ومايكل حتى برضو او كيفن بالاصح كانوا يلعبون في السباق وكانوا حتى برضو قريبين منه، فيحتاج انه يصنع المسافات اللي بينهم. ففي كل الحالات ان السباق الجاي ما راح يشوفه جدا سهل، لكن كل اللي يعتمده على السباقات اللي بعده وراح يعطي كامل طاقته.
Well, that last lap was a nail biter, but congratulations on the win, Josh. An amazing race, and congratulations on making it into finalist mode. And let's see if you can bring it home. But for now, we're going to go back to the desk so they can break everything down before we go to our next race of the day.
والحين اعزائنا المشاهدين باقي عندنا السباق الجاي، فخلينا نروح على طول عند المحللين نشوف تفاصيل هذه النقاط وكيف صارت، ونرجع لكم في السباق اللي بعده.